All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Nice. Yes, welcome to another installment of Healthy Habits cooking demonstration. As usual, we're going to start with our cooking demo. Today, we're going to be making a fresh corn chowder with some basil and fish. Does everybody have a recipe? Yes. All right, if you don't, now's the time to snag one. There's a couple extra up here. We're going to start by doing the demo as usual. Then we're going to invite Dayana to come on up. We're going to do a little discussion on healthy snacks. So we're going to learn a little bit about fish, healthy snacks, and then as usual on your guys' way out, be sure to grab your produce box outside. If you have any questions throughout the demonstration, just throw your hands on up or wait until the end. And without further ado, we're going to get started. So if everybody looks at the recipe, basically you're just going to start by heating up your onion and sauteing it. So I'm just going to pop that in there. Today, so I went ahead and I got frozen fish for today. Now, that is not what the recipe calls for, and that's not what you have to use. Has anybody here ever cooked fresh fish before?
Yeah.
Okay. So fresh fish, there's a lot of different kinds of fish. There's cod, salmon, whitefish, tilapia, redfish, red bass, sea bass, catfish. Yeah, tons of different kinds.
Which one does not have bones?
Which one does not have bones? I believe they all probably have bones, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they all have some kinds of bones. But some of them are easier than others to cook with. Like some of them will hold up their texture better. Some of them are easier if you're making like a tuna salad or a fish salad because it like mushes up nicely. So right now, I'm just heating up the fish a little bit and then heating up the onion. Once this is up to heat, we're just going to add in some potatoes and the corn. So with this being a chowder, it's not quite a soup. So we're going to try to thicken it up a little bit. We're going to try not to make it nice and soupy and wet. So cook up the onion. As you guys notice, I got the broth cooking already. Everybody notice this? I got the broth cooking on the side, so once I add it to the potatoes and onions, it'll already be nice up to heat. So circling back to fish, this recipe, as you guys can see, I just used some frozen battered fish. This specific battered fish, it's battered with quinoa, rice, brown rice, oats. So it's a little bit of a healthier version than regular breadcrumbs or panko. But one of the issues with fish is, one, it can be kind of hard to get fresh fish. Not all supermarkets sell it. And also cooking with it, just like raw chicken or any other kind of raw meat, you gotta be cautious about disease, healthy, food service handling and all that fun stuff. All right. So now that the onion's cooked up a little bit, I'm just going to add in the potatoes and the corn. Now with corn is going to be in season soon enough, but right now it's not quite. You can get frozen corn, canned corn, or fresh corn. For today, I just did a canned summer crisp corn. So I'm going to pop that in there. Now this recipe calls for an ear or 1.5 cups. Since I'm making like a triple batch for everybody, I'm just going to add in some extra.
Jay, can we mix it? You know, like one regular corn, kernel corn, and cream stuff.
You said, can you rinse the corn? I'm sorry?
Maybe mix it, you know, like 1 and 1.
Yeah.
You know, the cream style corn too.
Absolutely. I don't see why not. I feel like that's a really good threshold to get in the kitchen, is when you're willing to start experimenting like that and stuff out of the box, because I think that would be just fine. Using different kinds of corn, like a cream corn. Say again?
What's sub water?
With silk water? Where you
Sub.
Sub water, so substitute water.
Oh, substitute water.
Yeah, so today,
What is sub water?
so the question was, why does it say sub water? It's just saying you can substitute water for the broth. Yeah. Yeah, so like I mentioned today, it's got a regular chicken broth. You guys remember when we made the, what was it, the rotisserie chicken? It was the, what was that? It was just last week. Somebody help me out. Was it the rotisserie chicken? Remember that meal that we used? So instead of Yeah, so like instead of chucking out the bones or instead of throwing out the skin or any other parts that you don't use, you can put it in some water and boil it for about an hour, and then you have your own chicken stock. So I do that pretty often. You can do that with bones. You can do that with excess pieces of meat, fat, just to kind of make your own stock. But for simplicity's sakes, I just got some regular chicken broth. But if you don't have either of those two, you can just use water. At the end of the day, you just might have to use a little bit more seasoning because the broth, whereas I got a low sodium broth, sometimes it has a lot of sodium in it, and that's where a lot of the flavor comes from. All right. I'm going to cook that a little bit. I'm going to add in the potatoes. So potatoes are going to take a little bit to cook. So I'm just going to let them hang out in there for a little bit before I add in the broth. I'm going to start chopping up some basil because this dish calls for basil.
It's also important to make sure you chop your potatoes up very small so that they can cook in a reasonable amount of time.
Absolutely. Yep, so the point that was brought up was chopping them into as small of pieces as possible. Now, since it's a chowder and not like a potato soup, you know, there's like a soft spot where you want to get the potatoes, where they're not too soft, where they're mushing together, and they're not too hard where it's a crunch when you're biting into it and it's all starchy.
So you do not want to pre-cook those potatoes?
You can. I thought about that. I was going to, but I said let's just stick with the recipe and see how it turns out. So this recipe says to saute it and to boil it in a little bit of broth. So that's what I'm going to do today. But that did pop into my head because usually when you're cooking with potatoes, but we're going to try this out. I think it might be just fine. And since this is one of Shelby's recipes, I'm assuming probably she made it before, or whoever made the recipe probably knows probably has done it before. Hopefully.
Were those red skinned potatoes that you used?
Great question. So the potatoes that I used today are just a simple Idaho potato. All it says is Idaho potato. I'll show you what.
Potatoes are different. Some you can fry with, some you can boil with.
Is this the potato I used?
Okay.
Looks like a russet. Okay. Whereas this recipe calls for, so that's just diced potatoes. You can use probably just about any kind you want.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Can you use canned or can you use, like if you find something frozen?
I don't see any reason why not.
Doing all that work, okay.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. And that's the thing with cooking that we want you guys to do is start making your own substitutions. So whereas today I didn't get fresh fish, I got us some breaded fish that you can bake, which ours is actually baking right now in here. Looking fine. You can get fresh fish or whatever you have access to.
Now, see, we're using fish now, but we can use chicken, right?
You could use chicken for this.
Yeah, and substitute for the fish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not a fish person, you could use chicken. You could also use like scallops or shrimp, or like I mentioned too, any other kind of fish that you do like or that you'd like.
You can substitute spinach for the basil.
Say it one more time.
Spinach for the basil.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things about basil is sometimes it's not easy to find year-round. So what I got is I got some basil paste. I'm going to add in some of this for the flavor, and I'm also going to add in some fresh basil because this is what's in your guys' produce box today. So the supermarket that I went to did not have fresh basil. They didn't have any, but they had this. And just about every supermarket that I've gone to has this. Yep, so it's right by this. It's right by all the herbs. It's usually by like the salads. It's usually right up in that area.
Basil is important, right? Because it lends a certain flavor.
Say it again.
Basil is important because it lends a certain flavor to the dish.
Absolutely. Dayana, could you get me some paper towel when you get a moment? Thank you.
That basil pesto that I made.
Yeah. Throw it in here.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I had a lot left over from the last time, and I froze it.
That's perfect. Thank you. I'm just going to use it to damp up the fish a little bit.
Looks great. I smell it. It smells great.
Not too shabby.
Yes.
So here's what I'm going to do since I heated this up in some oil. I don't know if you guys have ever done this with like pizza or anything, but you can use some napkins to kind of dap it up, kind of soak up a little bit of the excess oil. And do that a little bit.
You mentioned the batter that fish was in. I never heard of those ingredients in a battered fish before.
Exactly. That's honestly one of the main reasons why I got it. I'll show you exactly what they have. So
You can buy that.
you can buy it. So I'm not going to say the distributor or anything, but it's got millet, quinoa, some sorghum, some rolled oats, amaranth, sunflower seeds. So it's got a lot of different oats, so it's not just bread. But in the future, if you wanted to get fresh fish, which is what I would suggest, I would absolutely suggest getting fresh fish for this. What you can do is just get a fillet or so, and it just says down on step 3, while the potatoes and everything is simmering, you're going to sear the fish. So you're going to take a little bit of oil in a pan, you're going to sear it on both sides, make sure it's fully cooked, so you can do it that way. Since I'm cooking for all of you today, I unfortunately would not have the time to cook it all fresh, so that's why I made that substitution. But again, whatever you guys have access to, whatever your budget allows, you can do frozen, you can do that. You can even just get the frozen fillets without the breading on it. All right. So I'm going to have this go just a little bit longer. However, I'm going to add in the broth now, which is going to help the rest of that cook. So now down we're on step number 3. Potatoes are searing. Bring it down, cover, add the water. And then luckily, if you guys listen, you can hear it bubbling just a little bit. So the temperature went down, obviously, because it's not, full on sizzling, but it's hot. If you were touching the pan, you can feel it. So whenever you're adding stuff to a dish, I'd always suggest heating up separately.
That's a little different because corn chowder usually uses half and half or some kind of milk.
It does, absolutely.
You were using the chicken broth, the broth.
Yes.
Okay.
So there is broth, but if you look down at, let me see. I feel like maybe the full recipe does suggest adding in some half and half, because I did bring some. So I got some half and half to add a little bit of a creamy flavor to it. Kind of, so if you're adding like, creamed corn like you were mentioning doing, it's kind of like that, so. Okay.
Someone in the chat says that shrimp would be great too.
Shrimp would be great too, wouldn't it? Shrimp or even scallops. Has anybody here ever cooked with scallops before?
There's a lobster in there if you can afford it.
There's lobster too, absolutely. So I'm going to wait to add the half and half until this is fully cooked. Does anybody know why I might want to do that? Wait to add the cream or the dairy to this?
So you don't want it to curdle.
You don't want it to curdle. Somebody I think also said it'll boil over. So it'll start like frothing, and then before you know it, I'll have all that white stuff. So I'm going to wait for this to cook. Pretty much at this point, I'm waiting for the potatoes to fully cook. We're going to kind of hope that it soaks up some of that liquid. And if we are left with more of like a soup kind of texture, what you can always do is add in some cornstarch to thicken it up. You can always strain out some of the liquid. You can always boil it just a little bit extra. So we're gonna let that heat. We're gonna wait for the forks to be tender. And then right before we're done, we're gonna add in some more basil. So this is 1 tablespoon is equal to 1 tablespoon of fresh basil. So if you're ever looking at a recipe, like this one calls for 1 tablespoon of fresh basil leaves. So you could use 1 tablespoon of this, and it's equivalent to it. So I'm gonna add this in. I'm gonna let that cook a little bit. And then since this is gonna take just a little bit of time before it'll be ready, I'll plate it up and show you guys what it should look like, and then I'm gonna let it cook for a little bit while Dayana comes up and chats with you guys. So this recipe specifically is pretty quick. From start to finish, it's a really easy meal. Unlike, like the mushroom soup, where you had to boil it and then blend it and then re-add it to each, you know how we had to do that? We had to blend up some of it and then recombine it. With the chowder, you really don't have to, because the whole point is that it's, thicker. What were we saying?
It was something, mushroom soup was so good.
That was really good, wasn't it? I'd have to say it was probably one of my favorite things that I've made so far.
Jake, what's the price difference between the basil and the tube of basil?
So a tube of basil, I think this is only like $3. And fresh basil, I've actually never bought it in a store before, except for the tiny little plastic, the teeny little ones that you can get of fresh basil. But for the most part, I've never really found fresh basil in stores. It's really difficult for me to come by. Has anybody else had that experience or no?
I've never seen basil the size that you have it.
Oh, okay.
I've always seen the smaller leaves.
What rosemary and thyme is in the market, yeah. Fresh basil.
And just a little bit extra. Yeah, I've never been able to find basil, like a bag like this for Eastern Market either. Yeah, I don't know what that is. It'll be okay though. I'm assuming so. All right. Let's thicken it up just a little bit. I'm going to add in the half and half in a moment. I'm just going to let it ever so slightly simmer. Can you guys see this? Now the best way that I've been told to test out and see how tender your forks are, or your potatoes are, is just by poking it with a fork. You can always take one out and try one, but I usually just give it a little poke. Or I'll set it down on here and, yeah, cut it a little bit. Maybe I'll let it cool down and I'll actually eat it. But when you're testing that, you don't want to grab a small one. You want to grab a really, really thick one, because that's going to be more representative of what if it's actually ready. So I would say that's just about there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some half and half.
Could you use cream instead?
You could, absolutely. Yeah, you could use cream. You could use heavy cream. You could use just milk if you wanted to. Now this is half and half, so it's half cream, half milk. Yes. You said, do they need to be thicker because of the starch? Yes, absolutely. All right, so I'm just going to do about a half a cup. I'm going to start there. See how that goes.
So the milk is going to add thickness to it?
Yeah, it'll help thicken it up a little bit, but it'll also make it creamy. Yeah. And I think that's the main thing that we're going for, is we're trying to make it a little creamier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lower the temp. And I just want that to thicken up just a little bit more, okay? So we're gonna let that go for about 5 minutes or so. At this time, I'm gonna clean up a little bit and give Dayana a little bit of time to transition. Then we'll invite her up to do our little discussion. I'll plate it as soon as it's ready, show you guys that, and then we'll be all set. So let me clean up here. Does anybody have any questions about the recipe? Any?
Potatoes aren't, it's still a little bit hard. You can also put a top on it for a few minutes.
Yes. Yes, or somebody did mention before too, why wouldn't we want to cook it ahead of time? Why wouldn't we want to boil the potatoes and then put them in? I really don't see an issue with that. It's just an added step, which may be the only downside is that you're doing another step. Whereas with this, you're just kind of building on top of each other little by little. So you can use canned corn. You can also use fresh. And with that, I'll invite Dayana on up whenever she's ready.
Did you put some white wine in there?
You said white wine? You could. I don't see why not. Just because the recipe doesn't call for it. What you can always do is put a little bit into a separate bowl and then add a little bit of wine to it and see how it tastes before you commit the whole dish to it. Yes.
What fish did you use?
What was it?
What kind of fish did you use?
This, I think, was just a halibut, if I'm not mistaken. It was just a frozen, pre-battered, pre-ready-to-go fish. But if time and money and everything was not an option, I would probably do cod or even salmon. Cod holds itself up really well. Salmon's notoriously a really healthy and flavorful fish. So I would probably go with one of those two.
You don't like tilapia?
I don't like tilapia. It's not my favorite.
It doesn't hold flavor to me.
It's not super flavorful, and also majority of tilapia, if I'm not mistaken, is farm raised. So usually it's not that it's necessarily inherently bad, but it is something to keep in mind that it is farm raised most of the time. So, and with that, I will hand it on over to Dayana. Dayana, I'll probably interrupt you in like 5 minutes just to show the plate. Then that'll be it.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Yes, I'm only talking for like 15 minutes. So.
Sounds good.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. And good afternoon to everybody at home. Actually, I'm going to move a little bit more to this side. All right. So today's nutrition discussion is going to talk about snacking and healthy snacks. And this is something that is incorporated into a lot of people's diets. A lot of people enjoy snacking. I enjoy snacking. I'm not sure if you guys enjoy snacking, but it's something that a lot of people like to do, and people enjoy having a snack that they like, right? And there's some people that don't like to eat snacks because they're like, well, if you're telling me I need to have 3 meals a day, then you're telling me, I can, eat snacks too, then wouldn't that be piling on extra calories, and wouldn't that make me gain weight? It is true if you're not choosing healthy snacks, and you have to make sure that you're portioning your snacks the right way, having snacks at a good time during the day. All of these things come with how to have healthy snacking. And so that is what we're going to talk about. And does anybody know, so it's recommended we can have a snack every single day. It's okay for us to snack every day. Anybody know how many snacks it's okay for us to have in a day?
2 or 3.
Yeah, so we can have 2 to 3 snacks. So the specific recommendation is to eat as many snacks as you have meals. So if you have 3 meals a day, you can pair that with 3 snacks. If you eat 2 meals a day, you can pair it with 2 snacks. But there's certain ways that you can kind of switch that up to fit your diet. So if you're in the middle of a diet where, maybe you don't want to eat as many meals a day. You're like, I don't want to eat 3 meals. Maybe I want to eat, 2 big meals, and then you can incorporate several small snacks in between those meals, and that will keep in place of the 3rd meal that you're not having, right? Or if you're saying that I only want to have 1 big meal during the day, and maybe you save that for dinner, or if you save it for breakfast or lunch, then you can have, multiple snacks when you wake up, between when you wake up and when you go to dinner. And if you're like me, sometimes you like to have the late night snack before bed. I really enjoy a late night snack, but sometimes the late night snack isn't all that good. Yeah, especially if you do something like, you eat your snack and then you go lay down right afterwards. That's not good because you want to give it time to digest, right? Break down that glucose, break down that sugar so it can give you energy throughout the night as you're sleeping. I know that you're sleeping, so you really don't need much energy, but you do still need energy to metabolize the weight and all the calories that you've eaten throughout the day. So if you portion your snack right before bed, and then also make sure you sit up. My grandma always told me if I eat before bed to sit up for at least an hour just to give it time to digest, or at least 30 minutes minimum with the snack. But yes, we can have 2 to 3 snacks per day, and it's recommended that these are 2 to 3 low-calorie snacks because we talked before about the amount of food, the amount of calories that we're supposed to have in a day, 2,000, right? Or a little bit over, maybe about 2,200. So a low-calorie snack is a snack that has about 200 calories or less. You guys think of any low-calorie snacks that you guys have eaten or... Yes, sliced apples, absolutely. That's something low calorie.
Carrots and celery.
Yep, carrots, celery, yep, low calorie, absolutely. You said popcorn, yep. Okay, and then with the popcorn too, you should try to make sure it's either air pop popcorn, or if you microwave pop it, don't add butter, right? Because butter adds the fat, it adds the grease. I know that the butter adds the flavor, I know. But if you do add butter, maybe just add just a teeny bit. So maybe like a teaspoon of butter, or maybe substitute that butter with a little bit of salt. I know now they have, like when you go to the store, they have like popcorn seasonings, and they have like flavors to them, like caramel apple and Parmesan, white cheddar, things like that. Now you can incorporate those. If you air pop your popcorn at home and you don't add butter or anything to it, but then you choose to add like some of those flavorings, just a little bit, that is a good alternative that you can use for a snack. And other types of snacks could be things like yogurt. Personally, I like to have apple slices with peanut butter, whole wheat crackers with tuna. And I'm not really too much of a nut person unless it's in like candy or something, but my mom, she really loves like cashews, walnuts. She's really big on, her and my sister. My sister and my mom, they're really big on eating things like pistachios. My mom really likes making trail mix, so she adds a lot of different, like she'll buy like mixed nuts from Myers, and it'll have like, it'll have all the different nuts in there that she can add. She'll add like dried fruits. Any of you guys ever had dried fruit before? Yeah, dried fruit is another snack that I like to enjoy. Personally, I like, when I go to Myers, that's where I get all my dried fruit from. Personally, I like to get their banana chips, the dried tangerine wedges. The dried strawberries are okay depending on like the brand.
What's the little oranges, right? What's the little orange little thing? They're dried too.
Oh, they're like dried apricots. Yeah, apricots. Yes. Those are another good option. Yes.
Isn't the dry fruit high in sugar?
It could be high in sugar, but if you buy the unsweetened dried fruit, that is a good option. That's the option that I go for, is unsweetened.
And how much nuts can you have?
I would probably keep it to about a cup because nuts can be a little bit salty, especially if you buy them in like the canister and things like that. They have a little bit of salt added to them to help give it like a little bit of flavor. But they do also sell unsalted nuts as well.
Yes, even the unsalted, because that's why you get by the unsalted.
Yeah, you can buy the unsalted nuts. They may not taste as flavorsome without the salt, but if you pair that with other things that have a little bit of salt, so like if you pair your nuts with pretzels that do have salt, right, that salt can pass over for both of the things that you're eating in your snack. Yes?
Would almonds be a better choice for the nuts rather than the pecans and the walnuts and all the other nuts?
You know what? I'm not too sure about the nutritional context about the differences of the nuts, but I think it would just be all about personal preference. You know, if you would prefer to have almonds, I'm sure it wouldn't be anything wrong with having almonds over cashews. It should be perfectly fine.
Nut butters.
Huh?
Nut butter with crackers?
Yep. I like peanut butter with crackers. There's so many different things. And one thing that I really like about the concept of a snack is that a snack can be so versatile. It can come in many different forms. You can enjoy it at any time throughout the day. And just so many different things. And so when I enjoy my snacks, I usually do them late. If I do have a snack earlier in the day, it's probably between when I've had breakfast and lunch. But most people, it's most common for people to eat snacks before bed. But again, you know, you can enjoy your snacks whenever you want, but it is typically a bit healthier to enjoy your snacks earlier in the day as opposed to waiting until so much later when you're about to go to sleep. And so with these low-calorie snacks, you want to make sure that you're reading the nutrition label, kind of going back to that from last week. You want to make sure that you read the nutrition label on the back to help you decide on if a snack is healthier, if it's something for you. You want to look at the ingredients. You want to see what's all been added in there. You want to avoid snacks that have artificial flavors, artificial ingredients added to them, artificial sugars and things like that. And you really want to make sure that you're having snacks that are lean, that are high in fiber, they have a lot of whole grains in them. And so an example of a snack that we have that can kind of go with Jake's corn chowder is this whole wheat baguette, right? And that's a type of grain snack that you can have. Not saying that you should just sit there and just eat that bread just by itself, but you could pair it with things like hummus, black bean dip. You can use like a spinach dip if you want, artichoke dip. When I do snacks with the kids, I give them like chips and dips. So even if you choose not to, you know, use the baguette, when I go to Myers, I'm always crediting Myers, but you can go to Myers and they sell these things called bagel chips. Those are really good. They have like pita chips there, all different types of like alternatives that you can use and you can have with so many different types of dips. Like their dip section is probably about as long as this, you know, countertop with all different types of dips that you can have. And they have so many different hummuses too. Like I like hummus, but I didn't know like they have like roasted red pepper hummus and yeah, they got roasted garlic hummus. Yeah. So oh yeah, with Triscuits. Yeah. Yeah.
Bean hummus.
Yep. You can do a red bean hummus. Yep. And one thing that snacks have in common, even though they can be so different, is the size, the portion size. You always want to make sure that with a snack, you keep the portion size small to complement the bigger meals that you could be having. So like if I were to say, you know, I'm having a 6-piece wing ding with a cheeseburger and an order of fries for a snack, that's not a snack. That would not be considered a snack because it's way too much food. Now if I were to say maybe out of all of that I was just eating the French fries, you know, that could be considered a snack. Maybe not the healthiest snack, but it is a smaller portion of that overall meal. So you just want to make sure that with your snacks, you're keeping it small, you're keeping it lean. Yes.
Well, you may have mentioned it, and I missed it. How many calories would you suggest that would be a snack?
200 calories or lower. And then again, if you go to the nutrition label on your food, just using this for an example. So right here, this whole baguette has 140 calories in it. Less than 200, so that's a good snack. If you're eating with your family, you can slice it up. Maybe if you want to pair like some cold meats with it, like, you know, maybe even make like a homemade little charcuterie board, you know, pair cold meats, put some slices of cheese over there. You can even add nuts to the board, right? You want to make sure that you're combining your snacks too. So instead of just eating a single thing for a snack, so for example, I'm just going to eat some grapes. It's recommended that you combine different food groups when you're having your snacks. So maybe grapes with pretzels or grapes with cheese or, you know, bread with hummus. You know, that combines different things and that allows you to get those different nutrients that you need. So when you come down to look at the food label for your snack, we want to make sure that we're keeping those less desirable groups or categories, keep those percentages low. So things like the fat, the sodium, the sugar, the calorie count, the cholesterol, the cholesterol levels. These things you want to keep low. Now, if a snack is high in any of these categories, the percentages are high in any of these categories, that would be considered a sometime snack. It would be considered a sometime snack because if you eat too many of these types of snacks, you put too much of that stuff in your body, it can be bad for you. It could cause you to gain weight. It can cause you to have health issues, you know, potentially heart problems. It could raise your blood pressure. It could raise your blood sugar and things like that. So these categories, you keep them low, and if you are eating snacks that are high in these categories, that you only eat them sometimes. And then when you come down to these micronutrients, so for example, the baguette has vitamin D, it has calcium, it has iron, and potassium. These, if the percentages are high, then it's considered an anytime snack. And you can eat it anytime because no matter how much you eat it, it's going to be providing nutrients to you. So it's going to be helping you. Yes?
Suppose you don't eat snacks and you eat desserts. Like me, I'm a big fan of cottage cheese and fruit cocktail. Now that's mine. So if you are eating desserts, should you skip the snacks or substitute the snacks for the dessert?
That is a good question. So personally, if I'm eating a dessert, I wouldn't eat a snack. But depending on what the dessert is that you're eating, because some desserts can be healthy too. And so if you're eating a healthy dessert, I would say it's still all right to have those snacks too. But if you're eating a dessert that's kind of high in sugar or kind of greasy, then I would say probably skip the snack or make sure that the snack is something healthy and does not have as much fat or salt in it. That way you're not, kind of doubling up. Yes.
For diabetics, for a diabetic, they say we're supposed to eat at least 6 times a day. So I'm pretty sure those are counting the snacks, the 3 snacks.
Yeah, those are
But what
perfect
would
snacks.
be healthy snacks for a diabetic to eat in between meals? I mean, I know apples for one thing. I love apples, so that's fine, know. But rest of the stuff.
I would probably keep it at fruits. But if you want some more specifics, that would be a great question for Shelby because she is our nutrition guru. And I know that she can give you those specifics that you need. So I can save that question. I can get it over to Shelby and I can get you back with an answer. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The lady down at the other end, she preferred a soft snack. She mentioned fruit cocktail and cottage cheese. I prefer a crunchy snack. So a baguette, I would probably toast that. And through the Project Healthy Community Program, I've learned how to make my own potato chips because I love potato chips. So now through this program, I'm making my own. Yes, but there's something else I really love, sesame seed sticks. Should I stay away from that?
Oh, I have never heard of sesame seed sticks, but I would just say you should only stay away from it if and not even completely stay away from it, but maybe cut down if it has high percentages in these areas at the top of the food label. So if it has like a high percentage of calories, a high percentage of like total fat, if those percentages, and remember the daily value is 19% or less. So if it's anything above 20%, then you probably want to cut back on that.
Thank you.
Yep. Any more questions? I know everybody's enjoying the chowder. Yes.
You said that package, one of those is 160, and you said you should combine like cheese or something else when you're eating a snack. So if you can only have 200 calories and that's 160, then you have to figure out how much of the other, because it's going to carry calories too.
Yep. So it's just all about those calorie counts. So this one has 140 calories. So then whatever snack that you choose to pair it with, whatever, if you choose dip or cheese or whatever, try to look and make sure if it can have at least 100 calories or lower, that'll be good. And then that way you're not going too high over the 200 mark. So I know it can be hard to get exactly 200, right? But as long as you're not going super far, so I would say as long as you're not going anything like 100 over, so like getting in the 300s for your calories, then that's kind of like too much. But if you can keep it close to 200 as possible, then that's good. Yep. So I will, yes.
Is peanut butter on top of graham crackers, is that like a healthy snack as well?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, and especially if you choose to have like whole wheat graham crackers or something that has like more fiber in it. Now I will say that Ritz whole wheat like butter rounds are the best whole grain crackers I've ever had. They're really, really good. And then what are the ones that we just said? The Tristic? Yeah, those are good too.
What about rice cake?
You said rice cake?
They got like rice cakes with cinnamon in them, but no sugar, just cinnamon rice cakes, or just rice cakes. Those are considered a snack too, but really low.
Yep, absolutely. So with that, just with the cinnamon, you want to make sure that you're not eating too much because even though there's no sugar, the cinnamon does have a little bit of a sweetness to it though. Yep. Yes. All right. Well, if that is it, Jake, I don't know if you wanted to wrap up anything with your recipe. Or
That's it at this point. If anyone wants some salt and pepper, feel free to add it too. But this is a dish with really no seasonings that I added to it.
yes.
Not bad. No added salt, no added anything except for the broth had some. So that is all that I have for you guys today.
All right. Well, if that is it, then we will wrap it up and let you guys enjoy your meals, enjoy your snacks. Thank you guys for coming as always, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and feel free to check out any of our previous videos. Thank you.
Thank you.